This man is the world's largest and most dangerous drug smuggler, El Chapo, who was kept in Mexico's extremely secure jail. His cell was equipped with special CCTV cameras, which were used to keep an eye on him 24 hours a day. There was no light or window in his cell, only a shower area in the corner. The strange thing is that despite so much security and constant monitoring, El Chapo walked toward the shower area, and after that, the security staff did not see him again. After half an hour, when they became suspicious, they went inside the cell, but the world's largest drug smuggler had escaped. So where did he go, and how did he escape? Let's look at El Chapo's life and his escape. Once again, in 1957, El Chapo's real name was Joaquín Guzmán, who was born in a small town in Guado, Mexico. Later, he named himself El Chapo. He inherited the habit of drug trading. His father, who was also a small drug dealer, forced El Chapo to leave the house at a young age. El Chapo had no job to survive, and while he was looking for a job, he started selling drugs. At the age of 15, he started growing drugs himself. He would choose an isolated area and start growing marijuana there. Gradually, his drug business increased so much that big drug dealers in Mexico wanted to include him in their gang. In the late 1970s, he joined a drug trafficking gang called El Guero Palma. In this gang, he monitored drug smuggling. He was so strict in his work that whenever a delivery was late or there was even a small mistake, he would kill the dealer. In the 1980s, he joined the gang of the most famous drug dealer of that time, El Padrino Gallardo. This was the largest drug trafficking gang in Mexico. El Chapo was responsible for the logistics and drug shipments of this gang. His job was to monitor drugs coming from Colombia to Mexico. But in 1989, the gang leader Gallardo was arrested by the authorities, and the gang broke apart. Taking advantage of this opportunity, El Chapo formed his own gang, which he named the Sinaloa Cartel. At that time, drugs entered America through two routes. Most drugs came through the Caribbean, and the other route was through the Mexican border. American agencies were focused mainly on the Caribbean. As a result, many drug dealers and gangs were arrested. El Chapo took advantage of this situation and began smuggling drugs into the USA. Using different routes, he dealt in many drugs, including methamphetamine, heroin, ecstasy, cocaine, and marijuana, because these brought him more profit. That is why he focused more on these drugs. However, smuggling drugs into the USA was not easy. To do this, he used his clever methods. In the beginning, he smuggled low-odor drugs like cocaine by hiding them in fire extinguishers, chili pepper cans, or car rims, methods that even drug-sniffing dogs could not detect. But the problem was that drugs other than cocaine could not be smuggled this way. So he chose another method, which became his identity. That method was tunnels. He invested millions of dollars and hired experts. He built underground tunnels that had complete electricity and ventilation systems. Through these tunnels, he began smuggling drugs into the USA. In 1990, officers of the Federal Bureau of Investigation were shocked when they discovered El Chapo's first tunnel. The tunnel was 300 feet long and had a full electricity system. The tunnel led into a house that was used as El Chapo's safe house. In case of an emergency, he could escape through this tunnel as well. El Chapo understood all the rules of this business. That is why, even after many attempts, he could not be caught. In November 2010, another tunnel was found in Oat Mesa with similar facilities. In addition, there was also a rail system inside the tunnel. This rail system was used to transport drugs during construction. In 2012, more tunnels were found in Tijuana, and in 2013, more tunnels were discovered in Oat Mesa. Looking at his extraordinary skills, El Chapo and his gang came to be known as the King of Tunnels. He built his tunnels so deep that even ground-penetrating radar machines could not detect them. He also hid the tunnel entrances very cleverly, such as under a bathroom bathtub or beneath a toilet. Before constructing tunnels, he selected locations very carefully. He decided to carry out most of his smuggling along the U.S.-Mexico border, from the city of Oat Mesa, California. He chose Oat Mesa for three reasons. First, Oat Mesa was close to two major transportation hubs, Tijuana and San Diego. Because of these hubs, it was very easy to transport drugs to agents. Second, it was an industrial area with many factories. The noise from heavy machinery and traffic in these factories was extremely loud. Because of this, It was easy to dig tunnels since the noise of tunneling was hidden by factory noise. The third reason was the soil. Because there is an ocean on one side of the city, the soil remains very soft, making digging easy. On the other side, there are mountains that provide strength to the soft soil. Because of this combination, the tunnels did not collapse. In other words, this city was ideal for El Chapo's tunnels. On June 9, 1993, Mexican authorities finally arrested El Chapo and sentenced him to 20 years in prison. However, this prison also became his office. He bribed prison staff and obtained every facility for himself. He even continued to arrange business meetings so his operations would not stop. In 2001, the Supreme Court of Mexico made a decision that made prisoner transfers between the United States and Mexico easier. El Chapo knew that because of drug smuggling in the USA, the US government would always demand his transfer. Once transferred, escaping would be nearly impossible. Because of this, he planned his first escape from a Mexican prison. He paid a bribe of $2,500,000 to prison guards and escaped hidden inside a laundry basket. For the next 13 years, El Chapo continued his tunnel operations, drug trade, and other crimes right under the noses of the US and Mexican governments. After 13 years, Mexican agencies finally located him and raided his house. Even then, he had planned an escape route. He entered a secret tunnel beneath the bathtub in the bathroom. However, this time authorities stopped him before he could escape far, and he was arrested again. He was then sent to Mexico's most secure prison, Altiplano Maximum Security Prison, where he was kept under strict surveillance. But just 1 year later, on July 11, 2015, at around 8:50 p.m., while walking inside his cell, he was last seen near the shower area. His cell had only one place hidden from the camera's view, the shower area. After about half an hour, when he was no longer visible on the cameras, guards opened the cell for inspection. By the time they entered, El Chapo had already escaped. He had cleverly expanded the drain in the shower area and dug a tunnel connected to a much larger underground passage. This tunnel led to a nearby construction site 1.5 kilometers away. The tunnel was 33 feet below ground and 5 feet 7 inches wide, large enough for a person to move through easily. However, this time his freedom did not last long. On January 8, 2016, the Mexican Marines raided his safe house in Los Mochis. And after a major operation, he was arrested once again. This time, the American government did not want to take any risks. In 2017, the Mexican government extradited El Chapo to the United States. He is now serving a life sentence at the ADX Florence in Colorado. But the truth is that no matter how strong the security is, the American government is always afraid that El Chapo might escape again. I hope you liked and shared this video. Thank you very much for your loving comments. See you in the next great video.